Jeremy Stephens versus Calvin Kattar is set to take place on the main card of UFC 249 on May the 9th, and I made a prediction video about this before when it was supposed to be on April the 18th. However, because of the unsurety of the event, I wasn't really able to fully commit my passion and my mindset towards this prediction, so I'm going to break it down in a little bit more detail. Calvin Kattar versus Jeremy Stephens is an amazing fight for the main card of UFC 249. I'm glad it's on the main card because there were other fights on the prelims, and I was worried about the positioning of this fight on the card, but they finally got the main card spot that they deserve. Calvin Kattar versus Jeremy Stephens is guaranteed fun for the main card, the pay-per-view segment of this card. I can't wait for it, because it's either going to be a one-sided domination from both guys, from either guy, or it's going to be an absolute war where neither one of them goes down and we just get to watch absolute chaos for 15 minutes on the clock. I can't wait for this fight. I'm looking forward to it. This is one of my most underrated fights on the card. I don't think the casual fans, and some of the hardcore fans as well, are giving this fight enough credit, because if Calvin Kattar wins this one, which I think he will, yes, that's my prediction, I think Calvin Kattar will win this fight, and I think he's actually going to do it by KO. I think he's a little bit too crisp, and I don't think Stephens is going to take those shots. I think Kattar's a little bit too educated. He hits very hard for featherweight as well. Very, very hard. And when he does connect on guys, he connects big time. And once he knows he can land on guys. Against Zabit Magomedsharipov in his last fight, he had a bit of trouble finding the range on Zabit in that first round, because Zabit is a fucking 6'2" or something featherweight, which makes no sense whatsoever, but you know, he's a weight bully, it's all good. Calvin Kattar was having trouble finding range in that first round, so he lowers his output a bit more, and he waits for his opportunity. But if Calvin Kattar can start landing on you, which I know he can against Jeremy Stephens, he starts upping his output, and he starts putting more behind his shots, and trusting his shots more, and I think that's really going to be the decider in this fight, the confidence of Calvin Kattar, compared to Jeremy Stephens, who's on the other side of his career, coming off a massive loss streak with some good performances, because he made those fights look somewhat close, but he's lost now to Zabit Magomedsharipov. He lost to Jose Aldo. He beat Josh Emmett as well, but then he lost to Yair Rodriguez, and then he had the weird no contest with Rodriguez. Jeremy Stephens hasn't had a clear win in a very long time, and I'm going to find out just how long that time was ago. 2018 February, and this is an active fighter in Jeremy Stephens who tends to fight every couple of months. I just don't like it for him. I'm sensing a trend in his career. And I understand that at 33 years of age, and this isn't a normal 33 years of age, because Charles Rosa is on UFC 249, and he's had nowhere near the level of a career that Jeremy Stephens has, but he's 33 as well. This is a Jeremy Stephens 33 years of age, where he's been in nothing but wars and slugfests his entire career. When it started, in how long ago? 2004? He started as an amateur. Jesus Christ, you realise how many fucking wars he's been through, and it makes sense that in a matter of time, one of those shots is going to sneak through, and I think that Calvin Kattar is the guy to do it. I think Calvin Kattar might get a finish here in the second round. I think there's going to be a feeling out process in that first. One problem that Stephens can pose is the leg kicks, though, because Calvin Kattar does have problems with them, and as we saw in the Dennis Bermudez bout with Jeremy Stephens, and against Gilbert Melendez as well, Jeremy Stephens can abuse guys who don't know how to really check leg kicks and put a lot of weight onto that lead leg. Of course, Gilbert Melendez trains with the Diaz brothers, which means he doesn't know what leg kicks are. That's just what it means. If you sign up to train with the Diaz brothers, there is one rule and one rule only. Don't check any leg kicks, eat all of them to the fire, and let them restrict your performance, and never make a change in your game, regardless of how much this leg kick problem holds back your career. That's the Diaz 101, you know? And we saw that with Jeremy Stephens versus Gilbert Melendez. He can chew up that leg, and he can hit him hard as well. He's got hard shins, very conditioned over his years of fighting. He doesn't give a fuck about landing them on the calf. He can do some damage with them. I just feel as though if Cub Swanson can find a way around you, you know? You know what I'm saying, guys? If Charles Oliveira can figure out a way around you, and I know Charles Oliveira is a bit better now, but this is Charles Oliveira in 2014. A bit more of a lackluster Oliveira, if you'll agree with me. If Max Holloway can find a way around you, I know he's very good, but if Edgar can find a way around you, and Edgar can find a way not to get KO'd in 2016, and Moicano can find a way to win against you, even though it was by split decision, he can find a way to win, and Moicano showed a bad chin in his career at certain times. I just think that Calvin Kattar can do it too. I'm sensing a big up and down in Jeremy Stephens' career, and it seems to be a pattern that we keep on following. I'm seeing him beat mediocre guys who we know he should beat and lose to everyone who we know he should lose to. The only time he's ever proved me wrong on that is against Josh Emmett. I thought Josh Emmett was going to be able to go out there and get the job done, but you know what? Jeremy Stephens caught him. Fair play. I'm just looking at these names. You lose to Rodriguez, Magomed, Sharipov, and Jose Aldo, but you beat Emmett, Choi, and Melendez. Good stuff. But then you lose to Renato Moicano and Frankie Edgar, but you beat Renan Barão at featherweight. How much does that fucking win mean to me? And he won by decision as well. If you can't KO Barão at featherweight, I don't know, man. I just don't see it happening with Calvin Kattar. I know fucking Jeremy Stephens has that one shot out of nowhere that can end any night for anyone. I just don't see it happening against Calvin Kattar, especially because Calvin Kattar has shown no signs in his career at all of a bad chin. He's shown a great chin throughout his career. He's taken bombs off everyone in the fucking division and he's came back twice as strong. I just feel as though it's a bad matchup for Stephens. Calvin Kattar is going to be a little bit too educated in the boxing range, and I think he's going to pick him apart with a jab. He's got the slight reach advantage, which usually doesn't mean a lot, but when you're a guy who's done as much boxing as Calvin Kattar, you're really going to make a most out of that 2-inch reach advantage that he has. It might be a 1.5 inch. I don't actually know what reach advantage he has, but it's a very small reach advantage, but when you're Calvin Kattar, you're going to make use of that, because I've seen Calvin Kattar fight guys with longer reach than him, and he just fucking out jabs them. Like, it's just, I don't understand Calvin Kattar. He's very good, and in his last performance against Zabit Magomed Sharipov, if that was... Listen, I'm just going to say this, because not a lot of people say this. Zabit made that fight 3 rounds. It was supposed to be 5 rounds. They said, hey, Zabit versus Kattar, you guys were the co-main event. JDS is out versus Volkov. Volkov versus Greg Hardy is not going to be our main event. So you know what? Zabit versus Kattar, main event. It's the time of all fighters' lives. They get offered the main event. They get the chance to go 5 rounds and prove what they're made of. They call Calvin Kattar. 5 rounds. You ready? Yeah, 5 rounds. Main event. I'm fucking down. Let's do this shit. And then they call Kattar. Right, are you sure you're down? This is 5 rounds. It's a big ask. You're going to go in the main event. It's the career opportunity of a lifetime. Are you sure you want to do this to prove to us that you can hang with some of the champions in the division by going 5 rounds? Calvin Kattar says, yeah, no problem whatsoever. I'll go 5 rounds. They call up Zabit. Who's next? He just completely declines the 5 rounds. He knows why he declines the 5 rounds, because if that fight was 5 rounds, Calvin Kattar would have absolutely obliterated him in that 4th. We know that. At the end of the 3rd, you could see it on Zabit's face, and we saw it in the Bochniak fight as well. Calvin Kattar would have annihilated him in that 4th. He really would have. If it did happen, and we know why Zabit doesn't take 5-round fights. He does gas out, and a lot of people seem to think that Zabit's going to be the next fucking champion, but are also picking Stephens over Kattar here. And another guy who had a close fight with Zabit is Stephens. If that fight would have gone on a bit longer, I would have picked Stephens. To be honest with you, I'd have picked fucking Bochniak to win in the 4th round if that fight kept going. Zabit Magomed Sharipov, I don't mean to turn this into a roast Zabit session here, but he really needs to fix his fucking cardio, because there's some big problems there. But either way, Calvin Kattar was very good. He was better than most as well. In the grappling with Zabit, I know it's very fair to shit on Zabit in that 3rd round, but I'd rather look at the first 2 rounds. Calvin Kattar did better than anyone against Zabit in those first 2 rounds. He wasn't completely outclassed. I know the commentary is very biased towards Zabit every single time he fights, because they have to. I don't understand why, but you know, he's from Dagestan, he has a good record, I fucking get it. Joe Rogan said he's the next big champ. So everyone has to suck his dick in the commentary booth, I completely understand. But I was looking at those first 2 rounds, and although Zabit was winning them, Calvin Kattar was doing okay. Despite being at a disadvantage on the feet in terms of range, he was landing some good shots. He was doing okay. When Zabit tried that trip on him, he didn't hold him down like Bochniak for half a round, and then Bochniak eventually gets back up. He didn't hold him down like Stephens for half a round. He tripped Calvin Kattar. Calvin Kattar scrambled, got straight back up. And I think that's one of the reasons why Zabit was so tired in that 3rd round. A lot of guys can go 3 rounds easily, but with Zabit it's a little bit different. If Zabit can control you at the end of that 2nd, or at the start of the 3rd, he can maybe get to 3 rounds and look decently okay and only be gassed out for the last 30 seconds like he was against Kyle Bochniak and Jeremy Stephens. But against Kattar, without that rest of the grappling, Zabit looked way more human than anyone else. Than anyone he's fought before. Than he looked against anyone else he fought before. Kattar was able to shut down the grappling, get straight back up, said, no, we're on the feet, I'm going to swing at you. And Zabit didn't like that, and you saw it in the entire of the third round. Kattar was marching him down. If I swear, even if you give him a minute of the fourth round, Kattar could win that fight very easily. I just think that Kattar's got this one in the bag. He's younger, he's improving more between each fight. He's got a great training partner in Rob Font, who is pretty identical in terms of dimensions to him, and also quite a big bantamweight as well, and a top 10 bantamweight, I believe. I think he's actually number 10. Rob Font coming off a big win against Ricky Simone. However, I just like Calvin Kattar here, man. I think there's a sign on Jeremy Stephens' career. Maybe it's time to hang up the gloves. Or, if you know anything from his other 3-fight loss streaks, it's about time he gets a big KO in the first round and upsets everyone. So who knows what Stephens going to do. But I'm going to bet against him doing that because he is getting older and older. And he's going through more and more wars. I also understand why he's taking this fight. He would not take this fight otherwise, I don't think. But seeing as the situation we are in, I don't think Stephens is in the position to start declining fights against not the best matchups for him. Because he's on a 3-fight loss streak, including a no contest he hasn't won in 5 fights. 5 fights ago he beat Josh Emmett. If he declines this for the UFC, I don't know how much nicer they're going to be to him about his loss streak. Because as we all know, if you lose 2 in a row, your next one means you're getting cut. Luckily, Jeremy Stephens is a big enough name, whereas he can lose 3 in a row and it's not so bad because he's fighting some top contenders. But I just think Jeremy Stephens, it might be time to hang up the gloves. 28-17. He's not a normal 33-year-old, man. He's a Jeremy Stephens 33. He's also got a family and kids, which kind of worries me in this pandemic situation because I feel like right now the family kind of needs the parents more than ever in lockdown, and it's kind of difficult for me to pick a guy who has a full family to take care of during this whole pandemic and still trying to get in their great time in the gym. I just think Calvin Kattar is a little bit more single-minded on the fight career right now. He has no family to take care of whatsoever. He's just trying to make it for himself right now. And I think he's going to get the job done against Jeremy Stephens. I can just see him fainting a lot. Because Jeremy Stephens, you saw it in a Holloway fight. When you faint, he's so ready to explode with huge power. So ready that sometimes when guys are fainting on him, he can gas himself out just by reacting. You know, like he can slow himself down and then you start to drain some of that power. And now you've got Jeremy Stephens second guessing himself. And now he doesn't want to let go of that big bomb because he doesn't know if you're fainting or not. And Calvin Kattar uses feints better than anyone, especially with the hands. I think he's going to jab Stephens' face off, avoid the leg kicks of Stephens, and then eventually start going to the body with his hands, which opens upstairs, and he's going to get the KO in the second round. He says he's going to KO Stephens as well. I believe him. Calvin, the Boston finisher, Kattar will get the finish in lockdown on the pandemic card, and I think it's going to be a huge coming out party for him. And if he does win this one, I think he should take on the winner of Edson Barboza versus Dan Ige. Sounds good to me. The winner of Stephens versus Kattar should take on the winner of Barboza versus Ige. They're both happening around the same time, which means their schedules are going to be very similar. They'll both probably meet each other towards the end of the year, around September or October, something like that would make sense to me. The winner of Stephens versus Kattar takes on the winner of Barboza versus Ige, and who knows? You could be looking at Kattar versus Edson Barboza. Bad matchup for Kattar. Not being funny, but I know Kattar can crack, but I mean, if you're talking about a guy who doesn't like dealing with leg kicks, maybe Barboza might not be the wisest next opponent promotion-wise for Calvin Kattar. But either way, if it's Stephens versus Barboza, great fight. If it's Kattar versus Ige, great fight. If it's Kattar versus Barboza, amazing. That'd probably be the best case scenario right now. But if it's Stephens versus Ige, who knows? We'll see what happens. That's the beauty of MMA. Like and subscribe. I think Kattar's going to KO him in the second round after setting him up all throughout the first. It's going to be a pretty anticlimactic first round, I believe. And then Calvin Kattar's going to start picking up the pace. Avoid that first round power from Stephens and then start catching him in that second. And I don't care how good of a chin you have. If someone can keep landing on you, they're going to KO you eventually, especially if they have the power of Calvin Kattar, who KO'd Shane Burgos, who's shown a great chin in his career. Goodbye. Thank you for watching, even though it was a bit of an early stoppage against Burgos. I've kind of ruined the whole video. Goodbye. Thank you for watching. Click that button there. See you later.